Hello, metallurgists. My name is Alan, and I am back to review another album for Heavy Metallurgy. Today, we're going to be talking about the new album from Smoulder. It's entitled Violent Creed of Vengeance, and it's out this month on Cruz Del Sur Music, a label that puts out a lot of quality releases. Smoulder, of course, has kind of a Canadian base, but members in other countries as well. They made a bit of a splash in epic heavy metal circles with their 2019 debut, and they do get, a little extra promotional hype because their vocalist Sarah is one of the personalities over on Banger TV. Her knowledge of all things metal is pretty encyclopedic, and her enthusiasm for heavy metal is absolutely infectious. She's one of the best talents they've got on the Banger TV challenge. And so, yeah, that does, bring a little more visibility to the band. That's probably a good thing because epic heavy metal is fun, but it's also a genre that has become very saturated over the past couple of decades. I mean, once upon a time, it was extremely rare to find bands operating in this style. Nowadays, however, it feels like you can't throw a halfling halfway across a tavern without hitting somebody wearing a Manila Road t-shirt or someone who has an Iron Sword patch on their denim jacket. So, can Smoulder find a way to kind of stand out in what has become a pretty rapidly crowded battlefield? And can they make the music interesting? While I enjoy a lot of bands that fall under this kind of epic metal tag, some of them can be very sort of cookie cutter in terms of their song assembly and can feel very one-dimensional, where the songs have very little depth, kind of like a lot of the pulp novels that some of this stuff is based on. Look, just because a book or a song is about a warrior and an enchanted sword, that doesn't mean it's quality stuff. So, what's up with Smoulder and their approach to this? Well, Smoulder doesn't really fall into this, pre-formatted template when it comes to epic heavy metal. Yes, they've got some of the main highlights where, you're going to have, songs that have, a sing-along nature. There's going to be a lot of sword and sorcery fantasy elements in the artwork, and this album does feature great artwork from Michael Whalen, longtime noted fantasy artist. But Smoulder isn't just doing songs that follow a typical pattern of, one catchy riff, do a verse, another verse, a pre-chorus, a chorus, a solo, and then maybe another verse and another chorus and wrap it up. Lots of epic metal bands follow that kind of song construction, and yeah, it can wear thin pretty fast. What I noticed listening to the new Smoulder record is that the songs aren't built that way. It kind of surprised me. After the first few listens, I realized that I still didn't have a very good grasp on many of the songs, and kind of threw me for a bit of a loop. I'm like, why hasn't this album sunk in? Why aren't these songs sticking more? And the next time I played it through, I was listening very closely, and I started realizing that these songs have much different constructions to them. They've got verses and choruses in places you don't expect. Some songs have two or more choruses. The chorus often changes lines and lyrics from one iteration to the next, and some of the choruses are built completely different from one another. So, yeah, the songs don't follow a predictable, easy-to-learn pattern. You got to put in some work to fully digest these songs, and I like that quality about these. It shows the fact that these aren't just good musicians putting in nice performances, they're also very good songwriters, and they're thinking about how they want to build the song, rather than just following a tried and true template of, everybody lift your sword, this one's about a dragon. Yeah, I've been there and done that a whole lot of times over the years. So it's nice to see them take the time, put in the work to write songs that are more engaging, have a little more depth and personality to them, and yeah, really make you come back for repeated listens so that you feel like you're getting the full experience of the song and that you've really got to learn it. You can't just play it once or twice, know it by heart, and then it starts to feel kind of like a throwaway, disposable tune. You've got several songs on here that are good examples of this. Tracks like Victims of Fate, Then we become the three who the Talisman and the Blade, great example of that. Spellforger is a faster one that's been released as a single, and the closing track, Dragon Slayer's Doom. This last track's noteworthy not just because it's long, but also because it's one of the only tracks on the album where the band incorporates a little bit more of a doomy element into the music. Now, this is something Smoulder has done before, and it's not unusual to have that kind of atmosphere injected into some epic metal. So it's actually kind of interesting that Smoulder has moved away from that more on this album. More of these songs stick to a pretty clean mid-pace or are a bit more up-tempo in their pacing. Dragon Slayer Doom is one of the only ones that actually feels like it's got that more doomy weight to it where they slow it down and go for some extra heaviness. That helps the song to stand out. As a 9-minute closer, it's perhaps not the highlight of the album, but the song at least is unique. These songs all do have some personality to them, which I like quite a bit. So those are some of the good things about the album. I only have one major complaint about the way this album is put together, and it has to do with the production on the vocals. They have used a lot of echo on Sarah's vocal lines pretty much throughout the entire album. Now, they did a fair amount of this on the debut album, and it actually felt like it was kind of maybe a weakness or a detracting point. But here they've actually doubled down on it, and pretty much every vocal line has a lot of echo on her voice. And I don't really understand why that is. I don't feel like it's adding anything to the music, and it's noticeable enough that it's pretty distracting a lot of the time. I'd rather them just strip away the vocal effects and let the lady sing. They even use vocal effects on kind of a spoken intro to the track Victims of Fate. There's a few lines that are just spoken before the music kicks in. You get the sense that it's probably supposed to be some kind of cleric or wizard or something talking about setting the stage for the next grand epic. But the vocal effects are so thick on it that it kind of sounds like he's talking on old-timey radio. Wizards and old-timey radio don't really mix well. You're kind of killing the mood there. The fourth wall has crumbled and is just left in tatters on the ground. Definitely would like to see the band lighten up on the vocal effects. I don't think it's helping the music whatsoever. Lyrically, the album's chock full of lots of fantasy references, tons of Moorcock, Elric, Tanalorn. And again, they're done well. The folks writing these songs obviously know the source material pretty well. But in this day and age, you don't get any bonus points for knowing, Tanalorn and Mellabone and these locations. You know who farther in the Grey Mouser is? Great. So does everybody else, because we all spent the pandemic rolling up 16th level dwarven clerics. The only people who didn't were trying to get the Games Workshop website to work correctly so they can order the 10th edition rules for Warhammer 40K. Nerd culture is a pretty, tried and true thing at this point. So there's nothing wrong with having lyrics about swords and dragons. It's just that it's a trope that's been done a lot in heavy metal. So it's not adding anything unique here whatsoever. What the band is doing, though, that's unique again, is they're writing good songs, they're putting the songs together in interesting ways, and they're turning in really solid performances. In particular, I want to shout out the drum work on it. Drumming is one thing that when you start getting into epic metal and straying over a little bit into power metal, it's often cited as a weak spot in the music because it can be a lot of, very linear, just head down, double bass, roll along with the rest of the song. The drummer here is using all the parts of the kit. They're not taking over. They're not trying to play lead drums, which is something that drives me nuts when that happens in heavy metal. But, here they're adding, lots of nice fills, but keeping the time as well. And yeah, it really adds an extra layer of depth, which is kind of, what Smoulder's doing well here. The songs have more depth. There's more character and personality to them. They're not just, a throwaway 10-cent, one-dimensional fantasy novel. Not every song is, an instant classic, but I think this is an album that people can come back to over and over again and still enjoy and notice new things about the music. So I think it's a good step up for the band. They're moving in the right trajectory. If they can clean up the vocals a little bit on the next one. And again, it's really just the production. I don't think there's any issue with the way she's singing. I think it's just a matter of, yeah, they added a few too many layers when getting the album produced. Clean that kind of stuff up, keep writing really top-notch songs like this, and I'll be really excited to see what the band has to offer when it's time to do album number 3. All right, and now for a call to arms. This is where I shout out another album that's coming out around this time that maybe is a smaller release that may slip past some people's attention, but it's a good one, and I think fans of Smoulder will appreciate this one. The band in question is Philadelphia's Blazon Rite, and they have their sophomore album coming out this month. It's on Gates of Hell Records, and it's entitled Wild Rites and Ancient Songs. Blazon Rite is another band operating in the epic metal style. This album has a very different feel than the Smoulder album, however. On their first album, Blazon Rite introduced a very quirky structure. The musicianship, was, a little different than usual. The lyrics were also kind of a different take on heavy metal. They had some of the kind of, odd, fun, quirky elements you would associate with bands like Lord Weird Slothfeg and Broca's Helm. So that appealed to a lot of folks. The album made some waves among epic metal fans. And so folks have been interested to see what they would do next. Well, on their sophomore album, they have changed things a little bit. They've added a dedicated bassist, and this has allowed them, I think, to tighten up musically. If there was a weakness to their debut album, it's that some of the strong songs felt a little bit loose. They just needed to tighten up a little bit more. Here, they've taken a big step forward. The songs feel very well constructed, very tight. Everything's gelled very nicely. That does come with a little bit of a price, however, in that the songs don't have as much of that unusual quirkiness in their construction. It's a little bit similar to the transition that a band like Twisted Tower Dire went through if you compare their first couple of albums to Crest of the Martyrs, where they kind of streamlined things, tightened it up, and had a more direct approach. I think overall this is going to work out well for the band because the songs do sound much better, but folks who really liked the more unique aspect of the debut album may be a bit disappointed that's not as prominent here. You do still find those quirky elements in the lyrics, though. They are still delivered very well, and you still have song titles like, Troubadours of the Final Quarrel, Salvage What You Can from the Night, which is one of the album highlights.
I flipped a cup of peace into the barmaid's hand. I slammed my silver tanker down and wait for God's
Autumn Fear Brings Winter Doom. The song titles tell you that, these are not just your standard sword, warrior, dragon. Did I mention the sword yet? Oh, yeah, warrior, dragon. They're eschewing some of those, basic ideas and motifs, and definitely coming at epic metal from, a little bit of a different, more obtuse mindset. But again, that gives them some personality and character and helps them stand out on this rapidly crowded battlefield that has become the epic metal subgenre, infragenre, microgenre. Whatever it is, there's a lot of bands operating there these days. So it's good that Blazon Rite have this unique quality to help them stand out. Vocal delivery is very strong. This was another strong selling point of the band on the debut. Continues to be so here. Think a little bit of Dio mixed with some Wuthering Heights, and you're getting the right idea for this kind of nice baritone vocal delivery here. Blazon Rite, definitely another one to check out this month if you're in the mood for some more epic metal. A little more straightforward and catchy compared to Smoulder. The Smoulder album is going to take you a little while longer to digest and give you some more depth. Blazon Rite's going to give you a little bit of, that, oddball left field vibe, even though the songs, are pretty tight and have a good catchy vibe to them. All right, that is going to wrap it up for this album review. So until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head and slaying all those dragons, because there seem to be a lot of them out there. because all these epic heavy metal bands keep singing about them.